The Roman Catholic Diocese of Le Puy-en-Velay is a diocese of the Latin Rite of the Roman Catholic Church in France. The diocese comprises the whole department of Haute-Loire in the region of Auvergne. Currently the diocese is a suffragan of the Archdiocese of Clermont. The present bishop is Henri-Marie-Raoul Brincard, appointed in 1988. The territory of the old Diocese of Le Puy, suppressed by the Concordat of 1801, was united with the Diocese of Saint-Flour and became a diocese again in 1823. The district of Brioude, which had belonged to the Diocese of Saint-Flour under the old regime, was thenceforward included in the new Diocese of Le Puy. Early history. The martyrology of Adu and the first legend of Saint Front of Périgueux speak of a certain priest named George who was brought to life by the touch of St. Peter's staff, and who accompanied Front Peter's missionary and first bishop of Périgueux. A legend of Saint George, the origin of which, according to Duchesne, is not earlier than the 11th century, makes that saint one of the 72 disciples, and tells how he founded the church of Civitas-Vetula in the county of La Vallée, and how, at the request of Saint Martial, he caused an altar to the Blessed Virgin to be erected on Montanus. After St. George, certain local traditions of very late origin point to Sds. Macrius Marcellinus, Roricius, Eusebius Paulinus, and Vozy as bishops of Le Puy. It must have been from St. Paulinus that the town of Roussillon, now St. Paulien, received its name, and it was probably St. Vozy who completed the church of Our Lady of Le Puy at Annecy and transferred the episcopal see from Roussillon to Annecy. St. Vozy was apprised in a vision that the angels themselves had dedicated the cathedral to the Blessed Virgin, whence the epithet angelic given to the cathedral of Le Puy. It is impossible to say whether this St. Evodius is the same who signed the decrees of the Council of Valence in 374. Neither can it be affirmed that St. Benignus, who in the 7th century founded a hospital at the gates of the Basilica, and St. Agrevius, the 7th century martyr from whom the town of St. Agreve Chiniacum took its name, were really bishops. Duchesne thinks that the chronology of these early bishops rests on very little evidence and that very ill supported by documents. Before the 10th century only 6 individuals appear of whom it can be said with certainty that they were bishops of Le Puy. The first of these, Scout-Arius, the legendary architect of the first cathedral, dates, if we may trust the inscription which bears his name, for the end of the 4th century. Pilgrimage and medieval status. Legend traces the origin of the pilgrimage of Le Puy to an apparition of the Blessed Virgin to a sick widow whom Saint Martial had converted. No French pilgrimage was more frequented in the Middle Ages. Charlemagne came twice, in 772 and 800. There is a legend that in 772 he established a foundation at the cathedral for 10 poor canons, and he chose Le Puy, with Aachen and St. Giles, as a centre for the collection of Peter's pence. Charles the Bald visited Le Puy in 877, Eudes of France in 892, Robert I of France in 1029, Philip Augustus in 1183. Louis IX met the King of Aragon there in 1245, and in 1254 passing through Le Puy on his return from Palestine, he gave to the cathedral an ebony image of the Blessed Virgin clothed in gold brocade. After him, Le Puy was visited by Philip the Bold in 1282, by Philip the Fair in 1285, by Charles VI of France in 1394, by Charles VII of France in 1420, and by the mother of Joan of Arc in 1429. Louis XI made the pilgrimage in 1436 and 1475, and in 1476 halted 3 leagues from the city and went to the cathedral barefooted. Charles VIII visited it in 1495, Francis I of France in 1533. Theodulf, Bishop of Orléans, brought to Our Lady of Le Puy, as an ex-voto for his deliverance, a magnificent Bible, the letters of which were made of plates of gold and silver, which he had himself put together, about 820, while in prison at Angers. St. Mayule, St. Odilon, St. Robert, St. Hugh of Grenoble, St. Anthony of Padua, St. Dominic, St. Vincent Ferrer Street, John Francis Regis were pilgrims to Le Puy. The Church of Le Puy received, on account of its dignity and fame, temporal and spiritual favors, concessions made in 919 by William the Young, Count of Auvergne and La Vallée, and in 923 by King Raoul, gave it sovereignty over the whole population of the town of Annis, a population which soon amounted to 30,000 souls. In 999, Pope Sylvester II consecrated his friend Théodore, a monk of Aurillac, Bishop of Le Puy, to replace Stephen of Gévaudan, whom his uncle Guy, Bishop of Le Puy, had in his lifetime designated to be his successor, and whom a Roman council had excommunicated. Sylvester II exempted Théodore from all metropolitan jurisdiction, a privilege which Pope Leo IX confirmed to the bishops of Le Puy, also granting them the right, until then reserved to archbishops exclusively, of wearing the pallium. Nowhere, he said in his bull, does the Blessed Virgin receive a more special and more filial worship. It was from Le Puy that Pope Urban II dated the letters apostolic convoking the Council of Clermont, and it was a canon of Le Puy, Raymond de Aiguilles, chaplain to the Count of Toulouse, who wrote the history of the Crusade. Pope Gelasius II, Pope Callistus II, Pope Innocent II and Pope Alexander III visited Le Puy to pray, and with the visit of one of these popes must be connected the origin of the great Jubilee which is granted to Our Lady of Le Puy whenever Good Friday falls on the 25th of March, the feast of the Annunciation. It is supposed that this Jubilee was instituted by Callistus II, who passed through Le Puy in April 1119, or by Alexander III, who was there in August 1162, and June 1165, or by Pope Clement IV, who had been Bishop of Le Puy. The first Jubilee historically known took place in 1407, and in 1418 the chronicles mention a bull of Pope Martin V prolonging the duration of the Jubilee. During the Middle Ages, everyone who had made the pilgrimage to Le Puy had the privilege of making a will in extremis with only 2 witnesses instead of 7. Honored with such prerogatives, the Church of Le Puy assumed a sort of primacy in respect to most of the churches of France, and even of Christendom. This primacy manifested itself practically in a right to beg, established with the authorization of the Holy See, in virtue of which the chapter of Le Puy levied a veritable tax upon almost all the Christian countries to support its hospital of Notre Dame. Relationship with Girona in Catalonia. This droit de quête, recognized by the Spanish crown, was so thoroughly established that the chapter had its collectors permanently installed in that country. A famous fraternity existed between the chapter of Le Puy and that of Girona in Catalonia. Later history. The statue of Our Lady of Le Puy and the other treasures escaped the pillage of the Middle Ages. The roving banditti were victoriously dispersed in 1180 by the confraternity of the chaperones founded at the suggestion of the canon of Le Puy. In 1562 and 1563 Le Puy was successfully defended against the Huguenots by priests and religious armed with cuirasses and arquebuses. but in 1793 the statue was torn from its shrine and burned in the public square. Père de Ravignon in 1846, and the Abbé Combalot in 1850, were inspired with the idea of a great monument to the Blessed Virgin on the Roche-Cornay. Napoleon III placed at the disposal of Bishop Morlon 213 pieces of artillery taken by Pélissier at Sebastopol, and the colossal statue of Notre-Dame de France, cast from the iron of these guns, amounting in weight to 150,000 kilograms, or more than 330,000 pounds. Avoirdupois was dedicated the 12th of September 1860. Saints. The saints specially venerated in the diocese are Saint Domninus, martyr, whose body is preserved in the cathedral; Saint Julian of Brioude, martyr in 304, and his companion, Street, Ferréol; Saint Carminius, Duke of Auvergne, who prompted the foundation of the Abbey of Le Monastir; and Saint Eudes, first abbot; Saint Theophredus, abbot of Le Monastir and martyr under the Saracens; Saint Mayule, abbot of Cluny, who, in the second half of the 10th century, cured a blind man at the gates of Le Puy, and whose name was given, in the 14th century, to the university in which the clergy made their studies; Saint Odilon, abbot of Cluny, who embraced the life of a regular canon in the monastery of Saint Julian de Brioude; Saint Robert de Aurillac, who founded the monastery of Chaise-Dieu in the Brioude district; Saint Peter Chavanon, a canon regular, founder and first provost of the Abbey of Pébrac, at the age of 18 earlier, afterwards the founder of St. Sulpice, was abbot in commendam of Pébrac, and, in 1626, was an honorary count-canon of the chapter of St. Julian de Brioude. We may mention as natives of this diocese the Benedictine Hugues Lanthianus, who edited the works of St. Bernard and St. Anselm, and was the historian of the Abbey of Vendôme; the Benedictine Jacques Boyer, joint author of Gallia Christiana; Cardinal de Polignac, author of the Anti-Lucretius Cathedral. The Cathedral of Le Puy, which forms the highest point of the city, rising from the foot of the Roche-Cornay, exhibits architecture of every period from the 5th century to the 15th. The architectural effect is audacious and picturesque. The four galleries of the cloister were constructed during a period extending from the Carolingian epoch to the 12th century. The Benedictine monastery of the Chaise-Dieu united in 1640 to the Congregation of St. Maur, still stands, with the fortifications which Abbot de Chanac caused to be built between 1378 and 1420, and the church, rebuilt in the 14th century by Clement VI, who had made his studies here, and by Gregory XI, his nephew. This church contains the tomb of Clement VI. The fine church of S. Julian de Brioude, in florid Byzantine style, dates from the 11th or 12th century. Besides the great pilgrimage of Le Puy, we may mention those of Notre-Dame de Pradelles, at Pradelles, a pilgrimage dating from 1512, of Notre-Dame de Auterac, at Sulhac, which was very popular before the Revolution, of Notre-Dame Trouveillée, at Lavaux-Chilhac, Bishops, to 1000, St. Voisy 374, St. Suaker 396, St. Soter, St. Armentière 451, St. Bernine, St. Faustin, California, 468, St. Georg, California, 480, St. Marcellin 6, Jahrhundert, Forbius, California, 550, Oriel, California, 585, St. Agreve 602, Eusebius, California, 615, Basilius, California, 635, Coutilius, California, 650, St. Eudes, California, 670, Ducidius, California, 700, Hilgiricus, California, 720, Tornazo, California, 760, Macaire, California, 780, Boris, 811, Drucktan, California, 850, Hardwan, 860, 866, Guido I, 875, Norbert de Poitiers, 876 to 903, Adelaide, 919 to 924, Hector, 925 minus 934, Godescalc, 935 to 955, Bagon, 961, Peter I, 970, Guido II of Anjou, 975 to 993, Stefan de Geworden, 995 to 998, Theotard, 999, 1000 to 1300, Guido III, 1004, Fredel d'Anduze, 1016, Stefan de Mercœur, 1031 to 1052, Peter II de Mercœur, 1053 to 1073, Stefan d'Auvergne, 1073, Stefan de Polignac, 1073 to 1077, Adhemar de Montiel, 1082 to 1098, Pons de Tournon, 1102 to 1112, Pons Maurice de Montboissier, 1112 to 1128, Humbert d'Albon, 1128 to 1144, Peter III, 1145 to 1156, Pons III, 1158, Pierre de Solignac, 1159 to 1191, Aymard, 1192 to 1195, Odilon de Mercœur, 1197 to 1202, Fr. Bertrand de Chalençon, 1202 to 1213, Robert de Mehun, 1213 to 1219, Etienne de Chalençon, 1220 to 1231, Bernard de Rochefort, 1231 to 1236, Bernard de Montaigu, 1236 to 1248, Guillaume de Murat, 1248 to 1250, Bernard de Ventadour, 1251 to 1255, Armand de Polignac, 1255 to 1257, Guy Fawkes, 1257 to 1260, later Pope Clement IV, Guillaume de la Roue, 1260 to 1282, Guido V, 1283, Fredel de Saint Bernard, 1284 to 1289, Guy de Nerville, 1290 to 1296, Jean de Comines, 1296 to 1308, 1300 to 1500, Bernard de Castanet, 1308 to 1317, Guillaume de Brosset, 1317 to 1318, Durand de Saint-Pourçain, 1318 to 1326, Pierre Gorgil, 1326 to 1327, Bernard Brun, 1327 to 1342, Jean Chand Orat, 1342 to 1356, Jean du Jorams, 1356 to 1361, Bertrand de Latour, 1361 to 1382, Bertrand de Chanek, 1382 to 1385, Pierre Girard, 1385 to 1390, Giles de Belmire, 1390 to 1392, Etienne de Martreuil, 1392 to 1394, Pierre Daly, 1395 to 1397, Elie de Lestrange, 1397 to 1418, Guillaume de Chalençon, 1418 to 1443, Jean de Bourbon, 1443 to 1485, Geoffroy de Pompadour, 1486 to 1514, 1500 to 1801, Antoine de Chaban, 1514 to 1535, François de Sarkis, 1536 to 1557, Martin de Beaune, 1557 to 1561, Antoine de Saint-Nectaire, 1561 to 1593, Jacques Diocese 1596–1621. Justices 1621–1641. Henri de Maupeouture 1641–1661. Armand de Bethune 1661–1703. Claude de la Roche-Aymon 1703–1720. Godefroy Maurice de Conflans 1721–1725. Fr. Charles de Beringhen d'Armain-Villiers 1725–1742. Jean-Georges Lefranc de Pompignan 1742–1774, 1790. Joseph-Marie de Galard de Terreyoub 1774–1790. From 1823 Louis-Jacques Maurice de Bonald 1823–1839. Pierre-Marie Joseph d'Arcy-Moles 1840–1846. Joseph-Auguste Victorin de Morlon 1846–1862. Pierre-Marc Le Breton 1863–1886. André Clement Jean-Baptiste Joseph-Marie Fulbert Petier 1887–1894. Constant Ludovic Marie Galloy 1894–1907. Thomas François Bautry 1907–1925. Norbert Georges Pierre Rousseau 1925–1939. Joseph-Marie Martin 1940–1948. Joseph-Marie Jean-Baptiste Chappy 1949–1960. Jean-Pierre Georges Desolme 1960–1978. Louis-Pierre Joseph Cornet 1978–1987. Henri-Marie-Raoul Brincard, C.R.S.